Hey guys, Sam here and welcome back to the channel. In today's video, if you are a founder of a growing service business, or if you are a solo operator, or even if you're a small team but you're growing a service business, maybe you feel like you're drowning in tools, you've got ad hoc workflows and processes all over the place. This video is for you. What we're going to do today is we're going to build a fully flexible and customizable CRM system that is going to start as the foundation of a wider set of business systems. You can see down here, I call this one the core CRM, because these are going to be the core systems of your business moving forward. So we have a CRM tool. We're also developing a core project system and also a core support system and also a core leads system as well. But here we're talking today about the core CRM because that's a really good foundational piece to get in place for most service businesses. That's where the hub of data pretty much starts with any kind of service business. Here we're looking at the dashboard, but if we open up the CRM here, you can see we've got contacts, we've got companies, we got deals, all the stuff that you would expect to see in a CRM. You can open these up, go into individual records. So we're going to build this whole thing from scratch. This one's going to be a long one. So yeah, if that is something that you're interested in, grab a coffee. We're going to build not only this interface, which is what we're seeing now in Airtable. This is the interface that you or your team can use to just run the system. But we're also going to be building all of the back end as well, because that front end interface is based off of this back end here. So just to kind of run through the structure of this video, what we're going to do is we're going to start with a quick overview of the system. We're going to go through that. Then we're actually going to talk about the structure, the data structure, and I'm going to talk you through the decisions made there and why we've structured it in the way that we have. Then we're going to set up this data layer that I was just showing you here. So setting up the backend database first and how that's going to work. Then we're going to set up the interface. So just as a quick aside here, Airtable's interfaces are actually super powerful. I got deep in it maybe about a month or two ago, which inspired this whole idea, because I used to think of Airtable as just a database tool, a spreadsheet almost, a spreadsheet on steroids. Whereas actually now with this really powerful interface tool that they now have, you can build really, I suppose, like industry standard front ends for your apps. So for the things that you're building in Airtable. And it is really cool, some of the stuff that you can do here. We'll dive into every single part of this in today's video. We'll also go over some automation setup as well. So grab a coffee and get ready for this one, because we're going to be going deep and we're going to be building out this CRM together step by step. And I'm going to be showing you how to think about this for your business, because, hey, this is a great foundation, but you're going to want to customize this for your own business, because you will undoubtedly collect different data on your customers or on your deals than other people, right? So we've got a good foundation here. That's why this is called the core system. And then you can expand upon that however you want. Quick aside before we jump into the demo here, if you are interested in just copy and pasting this whole Airtable setup and this whole system so that you can just start with this, what we're looking at right now, and customize from here, then join the Automation Architects community in the description below, where you'll get access to this full system, including all the training on how to build it. And then we also, inside the community, we also talk about how to extend this with additional automations and layer on AI to really increase the capabilities of these kind of custom tools that we're building for businesses. So if you're a business owner and if you are growing, as I say, a small service business, maybe you're even a solopreneur, this one could be really for you. Let's jump into the demo and get started. All right, so let me give you a quick overview of what's actually included in this core CRM system and interface. We're going to go through the interface first. So you can see on this dashboard view here, obviously with any CRM, we really need to understand what's going on with the deals in the pipeline, because it's very sales focused. So that's what this report is mostly about, right? So we can see how many active deals there currently are in the pipeline, the value of those deals, how many have been won this month, how many have lost this month. And then we've got some of that in a more visual fashion here. We can see the pipeline value, because we have different stages in our pipeline. So we got all these different stages here. These are the active stages. So we got £90,000 at casual chat. We got £27,000 at discovery call booked, so on and so forth. And you can see exactly how many deals are in each one. And if you click any of these little buttons here, you can actually look at the deals that are being referenced here, right? So we can bring out the pipeline value, and then we can customize this by stage. If we just want to see, show me the ones that are in proposal sent, here are the ones that are in proposal sent, we can click into this. It's going to open up the actual deal here. So it's pretty impressive if I do say so myself, and it's less about the build that I've put together here, but just more about how this Airtable interface now works. So this is the average days to close by deal value. So you can see down here, this is not going to be massively impactful for this demo because it's just running on demo data, but this could be really interesting to see over time if you actually hook this up to real business data to say, okay, look, we had a £9,000 deal here. It took 7 days to close. We had a £15,000 deal here that took, an £18,000 deal here that took 15 days to close. So you can really do some interesting stuff with the data because we are obviously storing all the data in the CRM and we can customize the reports. So let's go into the CRM itself. Like any good CRM, you've got a contacts database. So this is all dummy data that I've thrown in here for the purposes of the demo. But if I open up a contact here, you can see that it has the contact info at the top. Then we've got some related records, right? So we've got any related deals to this contact. If there's any tasks that are related here, we got notes that are related here. We got meetings and we've got record data. And I've designed this in a specific way as well, just so that you can see the contact information, so the information that's coming directly from this record. I usually like to put those in these kind of like gray boxes so we can see, okay, that's the information that's coming from this record, which is the contact record. And then these are all like related record tables. You got the record data down here. Very similar in companies. If I open up a company, we've got a similar bunch of information and we've got the deals. And we've got two different views here for deals. We've got the Kanban view here. And if we go back to the list view, you can just see it in a list view. You can also see, okay, I just want to filter by won deals here or filter by the lost deals. So you can also do that. One thing just to note here is these kind of colored bars on the left-hand side. What that references is the activity on these records. So if, for example, this record has not been touched for a very long time and it's sat in discovery call booked, it's going to flag up as red. I think it's within 14 days, but we can customize that. We'll do that in the build later. So if I open this one up and if I change something in here, let's say I had a conversation with them and I want to add in an extra description here, so extra context. And then let's say I update I can't spell either. So update the expected close date to the end of the month. If I come out, now you can see here that it's actually turned green from red because we've updated the record, which shows there's been some activity on it. So the red ones are the ones that we just need to pay attention to because there's been a lack of activity. In tasks, we got a very simple system as well. If it's overdue, they are flagged as red here. So we can sort that by due date so that you can see what is ready to go and what is not ready to go. We could also add in we also have added in some filters here for closed or open or all tasks. So for example, if I come in here and if I just mark this one as done, you can see the status automatically changes to complete. The done date gets added in. This is all done via the automations. So we'll look at that later on in the video. If I go back to tasks here, you can see now that's closed out and complete. So we never lose the task. It never goes out of view, but it just is hidden in a different filter. So that's really cool. And these all link back to deals specifically. And we've got proposals and we've also got meetings as well. So in a separate video, which I will link down below in the description, we have this proposal record, but what we did is we actually created this generate proposal button here so that we can actually one-click generate proposals for our potential clients inside the system. So that workflow is it's like an enhancement to this core CRM system. So we're not going to be going over that workflow today, but like I say, if you do want to check that video out, it'll be linked in the description below so you can see exactly how to do that. So we've got our proposal records here. And then we've also got meetings as well. And I've also created a separate video that goes over how to log all of your meetings that get added to your calendar into this database. And obviously you can replicate it for other team members as well. So all meeting records get pulled into here. And then once a meeting happens, we also pull through the recording link, the transcript, everything. So as you can see, the point of this system is to really act as a central hub for all of the relevant data to the sales process within your business, like how you actually run your business and how you actually manage your customer relations. That's the whole point of this. And then these extras, the one-click proposal system, the meetings automation, these are enhancements that we're going to continue to add on. And we're going to keep coming back to on this channel. So if that is something that you're interested in, do make sure that you subscribe to the channel. It's the best way to show some support. And we will keep adding on enhancements to this system over time. So that goes over the demo of the system that we're going to build today. So just as a quick reminder, if you do want to just copy and paste this entire system and you don't want to go through the whole build yourself and step-by-step build all this out, join the Automation Architects community below and you'll get access to this core CRM system, as well as all of the other automation templates and access to office hours and discussions around AI automation and how we can actually use these kind of systems to build better businesses. And we'd love to see you in there with all the other business owners like you. All right, let's get into it. Enough waffling about the community. So here, let's go down. So we've done our overview, right? So we've already done our overview and our demo of what we're building. Now I just want to go over the structure because this is important to understand. So I'm just going to copy this. I'm just going to pull it over to the side here. And what we're going to do is just quickly go over how these different database tables are connected and the reasons why. All right, so we're going to start with companies, right? So if I drag companies out here, you can see down here, the most obvious relationship that we have here is companies have many contacts. So many people that work at that company. So if I pull this out, I'm going to draw a line here to contacts, right? So one company has many contacts. We also have deals, right? So deals is like an opportunity, right? So there's a new potential deal or a new opportunity for you to close business. From the B2B space, it's typically like project-based work, or maybe it will be a retainer-based work or something like this. So what will happen is you'll create a deals record. So deals are related to contacts. So typically you're going to have a deal that is owned by a contact. So you might be dealing with Jane Smith, who is from the marketing department. She's head of marketing. You're dealing with her. So there is a deal that is associated to her because she's the main person that you're in touch with at the company. But because we are relating this contacts record to deals, we can also relate the company record to the deal as well, but that's done in a slightly different way. And I'll show you how to do that when we do the actual data build. So we've got companies that have contacts and contacts that have deals so far. Then we have notes, right? So notes can be left on, we can set this up so they can be left on anything really, but for the most part, they're going to be left on notes. So now deals also have notes, right? So we have companies have contacts, contacts have deals, and deals have notes. Deals also have proposals. So we have, if we create a proposal, it's going to be associated to a particular project or retainer offer or whatever it is. So it's always going to be related to a deal. So the last two that we've got here are meetings and tasks. Now, meetings are going to be mostly related to contacts. So for example, if I have a meeting, it might be with multiple contacts, but also one contact can have multiple meetings related to it as well. That's how that relationship works. That's a two-way relationship. And many to many, as we would call it. Tasks here, because the types of tasks that we're talking about in the CRM here are going to just be sales follow-up related tasks. They're going to be tasks related to sales activity. You can even change this to like sales activities or whatever you may want to make it clearer. So they're mostly going to be related to deals again, because there's not going to be any task needed or sales task needed unless it's related to a deal, right? So again, this is going to be something that is related to deals. But at the same time, because deals are related to contacts, then we can also by default pull in the contact details into the task as well, so we know who the task is likely to be for or related to if we want to have that information. So that's the rough structure. I just wanted to go over that. Airtable is really flexible in terms of how we create these relationships. So let's now look at the next step in the video. What we're going to do is we're going to jump into the database setup. So this is going to be step by step, building out each one of the tables and all of the fields that we need to collect here, and then building the relationships that we've just talked about. All right, so let's jump into Airtable, and we're going to create a brand new base. So if I go back to home, I'm going to come down here and create a brand new base. I'm going to click Start from Scratch. Let me drop this into a workspace. And let's go with this dark gray. I like it. All right, so let's go core demo build. Let's get that saved in. All right, so we always start with the table, and then we pretty much always want to clear that out straight away. So I'm just going to shift and then select all of these, delete these 4 fields. And this one this column on the left-hand side can't be deleted. This is the primary field for the record. Now, because we're going to start, if I double click here, we're going to start with contacts. All right. The unique identifier is usually what we want to use as the primary key. So here we're actually going to call this email. And then we're going to change this to an email field. And then let's go ahead and get the rest of our fields set up. Next, we will have first name. So I like to create first name and also last name separately, and then use a formula field to combine the two, because you just want all of them really. You want the first name, you want the last name, but you also want to have a combined first and last name so that you can use it in the interface when we start to build that later. So I'm just going to come down and type formula. And then within the formula, we're going to say curly brackets. And then you can see that it gives us these options here to choose from, because curly brackets is what you use when you're selecting a field. So we will have first name and space. So you put an and sign and then quotations with a space in the middle, and then another, and then curly brackets again, and then we'll go last name. So we'll go create a field here. Now you can see if I put my name in, so Sam plus Wilcox, you see it's now added that in there. So if I edit this field, I'm just going to call this full name. We'll get that saved. Let's just put Sam at actual.agency here. So we've got our first record, right? So the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to add a phone number field, because we do need that in our CRM. So I'm going to use phone number. Just going to say phone. And then I'm just going to copy and paste a dummy value into there. I believe with the phone number field, you can change the type of phone number it is, or if you put +44, so 36, you can also change the country code, is what I mean by that. The next thing that we're going to add is a job role, because that is really important as well. If we're working with a B2B business, we want to know who we're speaking to here. Job role, we'll put CEO. And then the next one that we're going to add in is who's the contact owner. This is the typical field inside any CRM system. There's going to be a user field. So typically the person that is going to own this contact is going to be somebody that's using Airtable, is on your team. So in which case they will be a user. Here we will put contact owner. We could just put owner. And you can allow multiple users if you want to have multiple users to be able to be assigned to one contact. I've seen that set up in some cases, but for us, we're not going to use that. And then I'll just put myself down here as the owner, just so you can see what that's going to look like. And then we're just going to wrap this up with what I call system fields, which is an ID. So I always like to just add a contact ID. So I will just use an auto number for this, and I'll just call this CID. And then I always like to add in on all records, especially in some sort of data system like this, I want to know the created time. So when was this record created exactly? I want to know who it was created by. So I want to add that in. So we're going to add in created by. And then the last two are last modified time and then last modified by. And I like to add this on pretty much all records. because whenever you've got a system like this where multiple team members are going to be using this system, it's always super, super helpful if at some point in time you need to figure out who changed this. You want to be able to see this record was actually created by this person, but actually this other person updated it on this date at this time, which is just useful to know when you're trying to debug or, I suppose, audit records. Last modified by is the modified time. You can set what specific fields, if you want to, that trigger this. So at the minute, all editable fields of this record will update the last modified by time. But if you only want that to be specific fields, you can also select those as well. But we're going to use all. And then I'm going to do the last one, which is modified by. So last modified by. I've made a mistake there. Give me a second. I'm going to put last modified time, and then we can do last modified by. There we go. So now we have a full record here. Like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, you're probably going to want to add extra fields in here so you can collect extra information, but just always question yourself, the extra field, does it need to be in here in the contact record, or is it going to be in our other records that we're going to create? So let's create the rest of them first, and then you can add all those customizations and extra fields in at the end. All right, we've got our contacts. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to create our company record. So start from scratch. We're going to call this companies. And then again, what we're going to do is we're going to just delete all of these, delete these fields. And usually the company name will be the primary field here because that's going to be the main unique identifier. You could argue that you could also use like the URL, but the name is the best one to use because when we link records and then we show other linked records in the interface in the front end, whatever is in this primary field is what's going to show up as the linked record. So I like to leave the name for the company because it makes the most sense. I also like to add a logo in, so you can add a logo field in here. Oh, that's going to be an attachment field. Nice to store company logos if you can. Then we're going to have a website field, so we're going to use a URL here. We're going to have a website. Then we're going to use a customer stage field, right? We want a customer stage field, and that's going to be a single select because this company can only ever be at a single stage. This setup is a B2B setup. And if we're talking B2B, then the company is the customer, right? You're selling to a company. You're not selling to an individual. If you are selling to an individual and you're not doing B2B, you don't need this company's record. You can just keep with the contacts records and you can skip this whole company's table. That's up to you. But for the most part, the clients that I work with over the years are B2B. So usually we will create this company's table. And we're going to create a customer stage, and you might have different stages here. But one thing that I would advise is that try and keep this customer stage as simple as possible. This isn't a field that you are tracking the status of a deal through because we'll have separate stages for that. This is just very simply, where is this company at in its life cycle with us? Is it a prospect? Are they onboarding? Is it active? Is it an active customer or have they lapsed? It's that kind of level. We don't want to go too crazy here, adding in a bunch of stages, what might be considered as process stages, because we will do that in our other tables that we're going to build out. So the customer stage here is single select. I like to add the color code options just so that we've got a little bit of flavor here in our UI. And then we're going to have prospect. We're going to have onboarding. The reason I add onboarding in, because you could argue that is a process-based step, but I always like to, when creating reports, differentiate between who is a prospect. I don't just want to know who is a prospect and who is now a customer. I want to know who's in that middle bit in between because the onboarding phase is really important. So onboarding has its own stage here. So we've got then active, and then we've also got lapsed, right? So lapsed are previous customers. So lapsed customers are obviously those who have cancelled with us and they're not using our services anymore. So the next thing that we have here, and these are optional, right? So this is up to you, but we could add in a team size field, and you could do this in multiple ways, but I'm just going to create a single select dropdown. We're going to go team size, and we're going to go 1 to 5, 6 to 20, and then we'll go 21 to 50, and then we'll go 50 plus. Right. We'll add that team size field in, and then we could add in extra fields here for like turnover. This, as I say, this really depends on what's important for your own records, really. So turnover here is currency. That's going to be a number field. You can set the symbol here. Let's just keep it at dollars for now. So you'd have the turnover or estimated turnover. Might be better to have it there, estimated. And this type of data can usually be pulled in by additional scraping and enhancements to company records. That's not something we'll cover in this video, but we will cover in future videos, so do subscribe if that is of interest. So the last fields that we're going to create here are the same fields that we're going to create in most of these records, which is the auto number ID field, right? So we want a company ID. And then we are going to have the created by, so created time, should we say, created at, let's call this. Then we're going to have created by. And then we're going to have last modified. At, and last modified by. All right, so now we've got our fields in here for our record. Let me scroll back over and let's just put a dummy record in here. So I'm going to have natural agency. Let's put, let's say that's an active customer. Team size is 1 to 5. Estimated turnover, let's say, is $500,000. Right. So now we have our record in here. Now, if we go back to our data layer, our data structure here, we've got companies, and remember, companies have contacts, right? So we need to build the relationship between these two things. So what we're going to do is we're going to right click on estimated turnover, and we're going to insert a field to the right. And then here we're going to click on link to another record, right? So I want to link this record to contacts, and we need to allow the linking to multiple records because this company record can have multiple contacts at this company linked to it. So we're going to call this related contacts. We're going to click on create field. Now it's adding us if we want to create any lookup fields. We don't, not in the company record. We will in other future records, but not in the company record. So if I come in here, I can now link Sam to this company. All right. Now there is another field that I like to add in here, which is called the main contact for this company, right? So if I right click estimated turnover again, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to insert to the right, and I'm going to click on link to another record. And I'm going to do the same thing again. I'm going to link to contacts again, but this time I'm not going to allow it to link to multiple records, because usually for any company that you're dealing with, there is usually a main person that you're going to be dealing with. So if you're working a deal with a company, usually there's going to be one main contact that you're in communication with in most cases. So in that case, we want to know who the main contact is, because we want to log that down here so that all of our other team members know if they're going to be reaching out to this company, this is the main person that you want to speak to. So here we're going to link Sam again, because Sam is a related contact, but he's also the main contact. So that's what we're doing here. Now I could add in another contact here. Let's just say we had James, a natural agency. So let's go James Smith. All right. Let's just say it's the same phone number. So now we've got a second record in here. If I come back to companies, you can see I could come in here and I could link another record here like James. So now we've got two related contacts, but I cannot update this. I cannot add another one to the main contact here. I can only remove, then I can add one in. So maybe James is the main contact. All right, hope that makes sense. We're now looking good on companies. So the next one that we're going to want to do, if we come back to our board here, let's create deals. This is one of the most important record in a CRM system if you are selling services and you want to keep track of all of your sales activity. So the next thing we're going to do is click on add or import. We're going to start from scratch. And this is going to be called deals. Same again, we're going to shift and then select all of these. We're going to delete them. And then the primary field is currently labeled as the name, but I'm just going to call this a title, right? So this is the title of the deal. You might want to call this opportunities or something else, whatever you want to call it in your company. It's the same thing. Could even be jobs, right? So if you do multiple jobs for a company and you want to log each one of those down, this is the same principle. It's the same thing. So title might be, I don't know, CRM customization for the company. So usually there's going to be somebody who is assigned to this deal. This is going to be one of our team members that's going to be working this deal. So the sales rep usually. So what we're going to do is we're going to add a user field here so that we know who this is assigned to. Let's just say it's assigned to me. Then we're going to have a value field because we really need to know how much is this deal worth? What's it worth in the pipeline? So we're going to add value. And then I'm going to remove the decimal places just down to 0 decimal places because we don't really need that. So let's put in here, this is a $15,000 deal. Then we're going to have a deal description. So this can be a long text. And I've got one here in my notes that I'll just drop in so we can open that out and I'll just put that little description in there. The next thing that we're going to want to do is add in our deal stages. So remember I talked about in the companies, we wanted to keep this pretty high level. This is the customer stage. Where are they at as a customer? The deals is going to be a bit different. We're going to have more of a process-led stage field. So if we click on single select, we're going to have this as the deal stage. Oops. If I come back into that edit field. So with any deal, this is going to be dependent on your company. But for most of the companies that I work with and also some of the ones that I run a couple of different agencies. With one of them, which I'm going to base this on right now, which is the easiest one for this demo purposes, a lot of times there'll be like a casual conversation that's had with somebody that can potentially turn into a potential future deal or opportunity, right? And I like to log those casual conversations. If a project has been spoken about, if a retainer has been spoken about, I want to keep note of that in the deals record here because I want to make sure that there's a task against that casual conversation to follow up in the future and make sure that we don't just have that casual conversation and then nothing comes of it, right? So I always like to start with casual chat as a stage. Then as things get a little bit more serious, there will be a discovery call that's booked. Then there will be a proposal that's sent. Then there will be an agreement in principle. Now, if you run a B2B business, you'll be familiar with the fact that a lot of time, you'll send out a proposal for a project or a retainer and somebody will agree and they're like, yeah, we want to do this, but we just need to wait for X, Y, or Z, right? So that is agreement in principle. It's the closest stage to one you're going to get, but it's not technically one because there's no money that's hit the bank just yet, right? Agreement in principle, then we'll have won, and then we'll have lost. So these are our stages. Let's just change the color of these ones around. All right, so they're the stages of a deal. Again, your stages might differ, but for most sort of service-based B2B businesses, it's going to be something similar to that. So then we've got two important date fields here. One of them is the expected close date. So we need to add in a date field. It's going to be expected close date. don't need to include the time or the time zone. And then we're going to have the actual close date, right? So let's add the date field in for the close date. Then what we're going to do is we're going to wrap this table up just for now before we link any records to it with our deal ID. So we want an auto number, which is a DID. Then we want our created time, so created at. We want our created by, and we want our last modified time, so last modified at. And then we want our last modified by is the last one. All right, so now we've got all of those added in. We don't have any relationships built just yet, so we're going to come on to that in a second. But before we do, let's just drop a expected close date in so we've got some data. Again, let's have a look at our board, right? So we've got companies related to contacts. Contacts are related to deals, and then deals have notes and proposals and tasks. So right now, we have our contacts created. So let's link our contacts to our deals. So what I'm going to do is just before the ID, I like to add all of the related fields. So just to the right of the ID, we're going to insert and then going to click on link to another record, going to link to contacts. We're going to link to multiple records. This is going to be related contact. And then we're also going to add the contacts company in here as well. You can see we've got companies too here. I'll come on to that in a second. So we'll sort that out. Let's add that in. So I'm going to rename this. So we're going to call this company. And it's going to say from related contact. So if I click save, and then if I come back over to contacts for a second, you'll see that it added in a second companies field here. And the reason being is because when we were in companies, we added in two contact relationship fields here. We had the related contacts, and then we also added in the main contact, which is a related field as well. So what this is relation to is the main contact field. So if I just edit this, it will make more sense. And we're going to call this main contact for. So we click save. Now you can see this one makes sense. This person is related to natural agency, and they are the main contact for natural agency. This person is related to natural agency, but they are not the main contact for natural agency. Now we have our deals related to our contact, and we're also pulling through the company from the contact. So if I add in here Sam, you can see that it's now also pulled in the relationship related to Sam. So we now by default have this deal back related to the company as well. Don't know what the technical term for that is. If you're more technical than I am, let me know in the comments below. And I would love to know that type of relationship, the actual specific name. We're doing pretty well here. The next thing we're going to move on to is notes. So if I come over to here, I'm going to click on create. No, we don't need to create with the new AI assistant. We're just going to start from scratch. We're going to go notes. And then again, we're going to delete all these fields. And this time we're actually going to use the note ID as the main field, right? So this is going to be the note ID. And we're going to use auto number here. And then the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to add a long text field for the actual note itself. So then we're going to add our standard fields that we like to add here. So we've got created at, so created then we're going to add in created by. Then we're going to add in the modified time, so last modified by, time, and then last modified by. So now we've got our standard fields in. Now, notes are going to get related to other records, right? Because they're going to get created from within inside those records. Now, the most obvious place that I like to link first is from the deal. So if there is a deal, we need to be able to leave notes on the deal. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to insert right, link to another record, deal, and it's only going to be related. This note is only going to be related to one deal. So we're going to remove relate to multiple records, right? So this is related deal. Now we're going to create this field. Now we're going to pull in one lookup field here, which is the contact, right? Because we're going to want to use the contact that is related to the deal in our interface. So we're going to use related contact. So if in our interface, we want to create a note from a deal, we're going to be able to do that. And also we're going to be able to pull in information from the deal about the note as well. You'll see how that plays out once we get onto the interface build part of this tutorial. We are also going to want to create another relationship here, which is going to be a relationship directly to the contact, because in some cases, maybe there isn't a deal, but you have contacts within your database that you just want to add notes on for whatever reason. So you also want to have the ability to do that. So what we're going to do is we're going to insert one left of related deal, and we're just going to call contact. We're going to put related contact. So we're going to link that to contacts. We're only going to want one note related to one contact at any one time. We don't want it to be related to multiple contacts. I'm going to add in. We're not going to add in any lookup fields for that. And there we go. So now we have the notes system set up. Let's just delete these records. And how this is used will be more apparent once we get onto the interface. We'll do some demos. So next, we're going to go to proposals. So again, start from scratch. So proposals. Let's remove all of these. And I just want to talk about why we're actually creating this proposals table. Now, if you have a very simple process where proposals are created pretty standardly and you don't really need any process around proposal creation and reviewing and approving and all that kind of good stuff, you might want to skip this part of creating the table, because you could technically just add a bunch of these fields into the deals record, and maybe that might be suitable for you. The reason why I like to keep proposals separately is because if there is a process around proposals, like a proposal is drafted, then it needs to go for a review, then somebody needs to approve it, then it needs to be sent out, and that proposal process needs to be managed. It's better to have that in a separate table so that we can collect more information around the proposal, so we can collect more data points, essentially, store those in our data hub here that we're building, but also create more efficiency around the process of proposal handling. So the first thing that we're going to do is rename this to title. And again, guys, if you are interested in just like all of this stuff, systems building, and there's no right or wrong way, I have an opinion on how I like to build things. But as the saying goes, there's multiple ways to skin a cat. And if you find that this isn't a fit for you, then you can change this however you want. All right, so we're going to add the proposal ID next. So we're going to go auto number. Let's call this the PID. Next, we're going to have the assignee. So who is this proposal assigned to? Again, if a proposal has to be worked through a process, usually there's going to be somebody that's responsible for working that proposal through a process, or at least it might change hands at certain parts of the process. So if somebody needs to review something, then it might have started out with me as the assignee, but then it might change to James as the assignee if he needs to confirm it and sign it off. We want a user field, and we're going to use assigned to here. We're going to label this as assignee. I'm going to save that. Then we're going to have the status. All right, so within the status, let's add the different types of statuses that we might have for our proposal process. So we might have a draft proposal is how it starts out. Then it might be under review. Then it might go to approved. Then it might go to sent. So draft, under review, approved, and sent. Then we're going to add in some long text fields here that actually collect basic information about this proposal. So if I come to long text here, we're going to have the proposal overview. And I will talk to you a little bit about how we can automate some of this stuff as well. All right, so next we'll do project goals. Then we will do the scope. So long text is going to be scope and deliverables. And then we're going to have timeline and cost, right? So let's add all these in. Then we are going to want to wrap up our, actually, we just need to add a proposal link field in. So if we add our URL, proposal link, and then our final created by, etc., etc. So this proposal record here is quite comprehensive, right? And the reason being is because what we want to be able to do is collect this information. So the overview, the project goals, the scope deliverables, timeline cost, so that we can actually feed that into an AI workflow and an automated AI workflow and create a proposal automatically from the data that's collected here. And we'll come on to that later in regards to how this data is collected. But again, if you want to check out that one-click proposal workflow, I've already done a video on exactly how to do that, and it already assumes that you've got this all built out. So it connects to this video really well. You can check that out in the description below. And there's also a way that we can actually automate completing or filling out these fields here for each proposal record based on a meeting that you might have had with the potential prospect or the potential customer. So if you have a sales or discovery meeting with the customer and you talk about these types of things, then we can auto pull the data for these fields from the transcription of the meeting. That's something that we're going to be building out very soon. If you're interested in that, do subscribe and you'll get notified when that happens. We got our proposals done. The last two are meetings and tasks. So I'm going to do tasks first. So let's go tasks. Actually, what we might do for this video is, because the meetings we're not really going to use right now anyway, I'll reference down in the description below the video where I actually covered the whole meetings table and how that gets automated and how it can connect into your calendar so that you can collect all of your meetings data, transcriptions, etc. that we just talked about into the meetings table. Then you could potentially use those for future automations. Just for sake of time on this video, we won't cover the meetings table, but check out the description below if you want the video on how to set the meetings table up. So let's finish off on tasks here, and then we'll get moving on to the interface, which is a little bit more of an interesting part of the video. So tasks, a task is going to have a task title again, or a task name, it's up to you. So here we've got task title. Then we've got the details of the task, right? So the description or the details. I'm going to put task details down here. That's going to be a little bit of a describer about the task. We're definitely going to want a task assignee. So we're going to use user assignee. Then we're going to have a task status. That's going to be a single select called status. And in here, we're going to have open, complete, and we're also going to have canceled, right? And actually, we'll also have one more for overdue. So we're going to have open, we're going to have overdue, we're going to have complete, and then we'll also have canceled. So let's save that in. So the next thing we're going to want is a done date. So when was this completed? So completed date, it's going to be a date field. So we put completed date here. Then next up, let me have a quick look at my notes here. We need a due date for this. And then we also need to add our created at and last modified by. So let's add a due date. And then we add in our created at, created by, last modified at, and then last modified by. All right, so now we've got those fields in. We need to relate these tasks to our other records. So if we go back to our board here, tasks are going to be mostly related to deals, but we might also relate it to contacts as well, just in case you want to add a task on a contact, but you don't have a deal on that contact. So we'll do the same thing that we did with notes. So if I come over here, we're going to come over to the due date. I'm going to insert right, and we're going to relate this to a deal record. We're not going to relate this task to multiple deal records. It's only going to be related to one deal record at a time. So I'm going to turn that off. We're going to put related deal. I'm going to skip the lookup fields. We don't want any right now. And then I'm going to also go to related contact. So let's go contacts, related contact. And we're going to skip that lookup field as well. We might add some lookup fields in when we build the interface, but right now, that's all that we're going to do. So now we have the task all set up. So thanks for sticking with me regarding this database build out. I know it was pretty long and tedious, but we'll now get into the interface layout so that we can actually put the front end on this, which is a bit more exciting. Hopefully this is helpful, and let's jump into the interface next. All right, so let's take a look at the interface that we're trying to build, just to refresh our memory here. So if we come over to our interfaces on the existing setup, that we've got a reporting interface here. But before we jump onto that, we're going to go through the CRM interface here. So we've got this section on the left-hand side. We've got all of our different tables here that we're going to need to set up. And then there's extra tables. There's extra views within inside those tables. If I click on one of these records, it opens up another view. So that's what we're going to set up. And we're going to go through that step by step now, right? So if we come over to our build, let's go over to interfaces. You can see we don't have an interface right now, so it's asking us to create. So let's start building. We're going to build an interface. I'm just going to call this interface CRM. And let's just put this icon on it for now. And then the first thing we're going to do is, you can see it gives us a bunch of different layouts that we can choose from to start off with. I'm going to choose the list one because it is what we need for our contacts table. And then you can see it's asking us what table do we want to connect to this list view. And in here, we're going to use contacts. So let me click finish. And now we can see that we have this contacts view. The next thing that I'm going to do, just before we jump into customization, because I want to get the left-hand side bar up, we're going to create the companies one as well. You can see here, we've got CRM, we've got contacts. And then if I just click on plus a page here, do list again, click next. This time we're going to add the companies. And now you can see, because there's more than one page in here now, it creates the sidebar for us. And if I hit publish, we're going to publish this. You can see, not now, now we've got our starting point for our interface, right? So we've got contacts and companies. The reason why in here, we've got like the CRM, and then on this one, we've got reporting, is because we've got two interfaces linked in this one, two interfaces linked within this one system. So if I add a reporting interface in here, it will then group them by each one of these to add this extra layer of organization on. But because we're only working on one, here we just have there is no sort of like CRM top level organization there. All right, so let's go to contacts. Let's start there. I'm going to click on edit pages. So let's get this set up, right? If we look here, we've got this top bar. There are a few things. We've got some filters here, and then we've also got an add contact button. Now, if I click into this main screen, it's selected the whole page here. Then we have the settings bar on the right-hand side. And you can see we've got this use filters section here. We don't have any filters selected at the minute. So if I click on tabs, you can see it adds extra tabs in, and we can filter through different views if we wanted to do that. But actually what we're going to do is we're going to use drop-downs. So now we can see it gives us different filter drop-downs that we can use. So what did we have here? We had the contact owner and created at. So we could select show me contacts created between X and Y date if we wanted to do that. So the contact owner is already in here. If I show you here, we've got the level is at contacts. The field is the contact owner. You could change this if you wanted to something else. And then if I click on plus, Now we can add an extra field to filter by. So we want to filter by the created time. So now we're able to publish this. And you can see now we've got these two filters in here. And you can add in as many filters as you want. If you want to filter by different fields, be my guest, add in as many of those as you want to. But you can see we still don't have at the top here our add contacts button. And that's going to allow us, when our team are using this interface, because just to back up for 1 second here, one of the things that the reason why we're building this interface out is because we don't want our team to have to use this view in Airtable, because it's a very database structured view. And some people aren't comfortable with using these types of systems, these database systems. So the interface is to bypass that and to make the system look more like a normal piece of software that people would use, a bit more user-friendly. So that's what we're trying to build here. So, when users are using this type of system, they want the ability to be able to create a contact as well. So we need to add a create a contact button up there as well. But first, I'm just going to add the columns in here that make sense. And we're going to reorganize some of these around. So if I click on this table here, you see we're now creating the different settings for the table. If I click back on the page here, it's doing the page level. If I click here, it's doing the settings for the table level. So what we're going to do is we're going to click on the fields here, and we're going to add in whatever fields that we want to add in. But I would add in I would have full name. We don't need first name and last name here. It takes up a bit of space. So we just have full name here, right? We've made that formula. Why not? We may as well use that. So we put the full name first. I like to know who the company is, who the contact is related to from a company perspective. Also, as well, I want to know when they were created, because we're probably going to sort this table by the created date so that we can see any new contacts that have come through. They go right to the top, just so that we're always looking at the freshest contacts in the database. Going to add in the job role, and maybe we'll also add in the phone as well, right? So now that we've added those fields in, you can see if I click on this field, I can reorganize them in the way that I want to. So I'm going to put created time first, because I always like to see that up front. It's a little bit too large. So you can see if I click on this little bar here, I can make this a little bit shorter. So then we've got the full name, we've got the email, the company, the job role, and the phone. So that's looking a little bit more useful now, that view. Now what happens if we want to add a contact, or we want to allow our users to add a contact to the database? Now what we need to be able to do is add this action. So if I click on the page, and if I scroll down, you'll see here underneath user actions, of which we've got a few other things that we can do, we have this buttons section here. So if I click on buttons, now we can add a button. So if I click on that, you can see it starts to add the button in. The default is go to website. We don't want that. So what we're going to do is we're going to click on this little cog next to the button here to open the button properties. And we're actually going to change the type of action that this button performs. So we're going to click go to external URL here, which is the default action. And we're going to change this to open record creation form, because that's what we're doing, right? When we're going to click this button to add a contact, it's going to open a form so that we can actually add the contact into the database. And because we've selected that as an option, before we do that, we can change the label here. So I'm just going to pick plus, so add contact. So the form here is the contact form. Now, if I click on edit form, this is a form that we can get people to fill in to add a new contact, right? So if I go over to here to our existing one, if I click on add contact here, you can see these are the fields that we've got to add a contact here. We've got first name, job role, email, phone, company, main contact for, and the contact owner. And then we've added in some extra bits up here. So you can create a contact through this form. Just for time here, because I know this video is going to be quite long already, I'm going to save adding the form, making it exactly the same spec as this. Again, if you want this full system, just to click and copy and paste it into your Airtable account, join the Automation Architects community, and you'll get support on implementation and all that kind of good stuff as well if you get stuck or you want to customize in certain ways. So yeah, that's how you create that button up there to add a new record into the contacts database. So now we've got our contact screen looking pretty good. What we also want to configure is what happens if somebody clicks on a row here because they want to open up a contact record and they want to see the contact record details. So if I click on this, it's going to come up with a little pop-up screen and it says, do you want to allow users to open record details? I'm going to click allow because yes, I do. And then by default, it creates this slide out page style. So when you click on a contact, it's going to slide out with this right-hand panel here and then display a bunch of information about the contact. Personally, I prefer to have it so that when you click on the contact, it goes to an actual contact page. And I'll show you why in a second. So what I'm going to do to change this is I'm going to, first off, I'm going to label this as contact details full, because that's what we're going to change this view to. And I'm going to click on the page style here as full screen. So now you can see it has this full screen layout. If I click back to contacts, it takes us back to the contact table. If I click on contact again here, it will take us into the full screen. All right. So the top field, so the title field of this record is the email. I actually want to change this to full name. And again, there's another benefit of having that full name formula that we created before. And then we've got a bunch of other fields in here that we obviously want to organize in our contact record. The system fields that we have, like created time, created by, contact ID, all that kind of good stuff, I actually want to put that in a group down at the bottom of the record because it's not really that useful in regards to the information that you want to see when you open a contact record. So you want it in the hierarchy of information, it's at the bottom of the page. It's only going to be used every now and then, but we do want to have it on the page in case you want to check those details. So that's going to go right down to the bottom. And to do that, you can see if I hover over this box here, all of these details are in what's called a group, right? So this is a group. I want to create a second group here. And what this group is going to be is all of those other things that we just mentioned, right? So the ID, the created time, the created by, we want the last modified time, and we also want the last modified by. So if I click on created by, I can drag this into this new group here. The contact ID can come in as well as the created time. And I like to highlight this group, and then I like to show background color as well, just to separate, make some separation between the different parts of the page. From a visual perspective, it looks more appealing and it's easier as you're scanning the page to group the stuff together. If I open up this just to have a quick look of how we've got this set out, I call this record data because these are kind of like the system sort of data fields. Then we're going to add a little description here as well that says these are uneditable system fields related to this record. So if I click on the group again, you can see show description here. We can turn that on and then I can click on this to add that extra text. Now, if I click on publish here, I just want to show you what this looks like. So now we have this contact record and you can see I can't change anything, right? It's not that helpful if I'm somebody that's trying to use this system. So if I go back to, if I open this up again, I'm going to click on edit page. Now we don't want this record data to be editable because it's almost timestamps and stamped by the system. So we're going to keep this as uneditable, right? So we got created time and created by, we got last modified time, and we also need to add in here last modified by, and then we can drag that over there and we can stack these side by side to create a double column layout in this group. So we're going to leave these uneditable. But in this top group here, we want this data to be editable by the user. So if I click on the group, you can see here underneath the data tab that we've got 7 fields that are visible, and the permissions are that they are view only. So we're going to change this to editable. As you can see, as I change to editable, it turns these into actual fields that can be clicked into and we can change the data. So one thing I'm just going to do is tidy this up a little bit. So if I change the fields here, we don't need the full name because you're not going to edit the full name in here anyway. We've got the full name at the top. We've got the first name and the last name. We want to keep those in. But what we probably want to do is put them side by side. Let me just double check the layout that we've got in here because it is pretty nice. We've got first name, last name, email, phone, job role, contact owner, company, and main contact for, right? And all of these things are editable in the top group. So let's start organizing this in the right way. So we've got first name, last name, then we wanted to add in the email. Let's put that underneath there. I think we've got phone, then we've got job role, then we've got contact owner. And you can see down here that this looks a little bit different here. So you've got company here with this just little tag. But if we look at this one, it looks a lot different, right? And that's because you can customize how related records show in an existing record when you're making the interface. So if I click on this company's field here, what we're going to do is you can see the style here. We've got this as a card style at the minute. I'm actually going to change it to the pill style. And then you can see it makes it a lot smaller and just easy to manage visually. Sometimes though you do want that card style. Because you want to display a little bit extra information on it, but it comes down to the use case. I like to have the pill style for this. And then we also have main contact for as well. What we're going to do is add an extra one here, and we're going to go main contact for. And again, it's put it into the card style. So we're going to change that, and then we'll drop it to the right-hand side. One thing I'm going to do is click on the group. We're going to call this contact info. And then we're going to put show background color on this as well, right? So we've now got this. Oh, where's the title not being shown? Yeah, so add the group title. There we go. So now we've got this contact info section at the top, which is editable. And we've got the record data at the bottom, which is not editable. And in between, what we're going to do is we're going to stick our related objects, so our related records. So deals, tasks, notes, meetings, that's all going to go in between these two groups. So if I click on add an extra group here, what we're going to do is we're going to come down to deals. And you can see down here, why have we got deals and deals 2? We've got deals and deals 2. Let's have a quick look at why that is. Let's go back into our data, come into contacts. I don't know why we've got this field called deals here, so let's delete that. That's fine, because this is our related deal record, right? So let's save that as deals. Let's come back into our interface. If I open this guy up, in this group, we want to click on fields up here, and then we are going to add deals. So if we click on show deals here, and then I'm going to click on this deal, and then in the appearance section here, we want to show this as a view. All right, so if I click on view, now what it does is it shows it in a table format, right? We don't want this description. If I click on the group again here, we should have, oh yeah, there we go. We've got the description here, so we can get rid of that. We don't need that, but we might not need deals as well. Let's just have a quick look. So we got deals here. Now we've got no data to work with here, so it's hard to know what it looks like. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back to the data, and I'm just going to add that deal into here as well. Come back into our interface. So you can see for James here, now we've got the deals listed underneath here as well, right? Which is awesome. And we can customize the columns here that are displayed in this deals table. And you can imagine if James here is added to more deals than one, then they'll all be listed in here. And if I show you here, you've got like title, value, and description. Same here. We've got title assigned to and value. If I click on this, we can add in whatever fields that we want from the deal, right? So expected close date, description, whatever you want to add in there. So let's publish this and let's take a look. Looking pretty good. So now we can go from contacts into here. If we click on James, now we've got James's record. And you'll notice that we also have this comments bar on the left-hand side. That's because we've got comments turned on for this type of record. So if you've got multiple team members working on James or any deal or anything related to James here, you can have them leave comments in here. They can @tag each other and they can get notifications when they are tagged, all that kind of good stuff. So super, super valuable to have this comment section in here as well. All right, so the next thing that we're going to want to do is come back into edit pages and add the extra groups in with the other things, right? So now we're going to go add group. This time we're going to do notes. I'm going to add another group. Actually, I think what we can do is, but no, that's fine. So we're going to call this one notes. Change this again to a view. We don't need a description here, so we'll get rid of that. There's no notes on here yet, so it displays this empty state. Then we've got another group here, and in this group, we are going to add tasks. So now we've got deals, notes, and tasks. The interesting thing here that we can do is we can actually have actions to create each one of these things from within inside this record. So on our notes section here, we want to be able to add a new note for this contact from within inside the contact record. If we're in here, for example, we want our users to be able to drop notes in here for other users to see. Now you might be asking, actually, why would I have notes here? And then I've also got comments here as well. The reason why I like to have notes is because you can actually export notes because it's its own database object here. It's its own database record. So if you ever need to get information out of your notes, or if you ever want to run any reports on your notes, especially with AI nowadays, which could be really useful, whereas it's actually a lot more difficult to get the comments out of a record. You would have to essentially use custom API calls to be able to access the comments that are on a record. So notes is an option for you to be able to use to store information in a record that's actually easily accessible and processable in the future if you want to. So yeah, we want to create a new note from within inside this record. So if we go to edit page, and then if we click on our notes group here, if I scroll down, we want to be able to add a record through a form. So if we click on this little icon here, this little toggle here, should I say, now you can see it's added in a button into notes for us. So the button here is add note. I'm going to click into go to button properties. Just going to make this consistent with what we have up top. So plus add note. And then if I click on edit the form, you can see we've now got the note and a related contact. We don't need that because we're creating it through this form here. And the reason why this will automatically link to the record is because we use that little toggle to allow to create records through a form. So now if we close this down, and if we click publish, and if I come down to notes here, I can click on note. I can just do test note, add. If I click on create, you can see it adds our note in here, and I can keep adding notes, right? So second note. So you can see the note ID, the actual note itself, created at and created by, right? So you can see all that stuff in here. And again, you can customize these columns. We don't have a huge amount of different notes in here, but you can see at the minute, I can't do anything with any of these records, right? And we can also set the same up here for tasks as well, just to avoid any doubt there. Obviously, you can do the same for tasks. Just for sake of time, I'm not going to on this video, but you get the idea. This is starting to look really professional, and it's so customizable and so flexible, which is what I really like about it. So yeah, one of the things that we want to be able to do though is if we're in this contact here, we want to be able to click into the deal, which we can't currently, right? Or click into the note and open the note if we want to, or edit the note if we want to, right? So how do we do that? If we come back into our edit pages, scroll down, if I click on this table here for the deals, on the right-hand side, you can see underneath user actions at the bottom, we've got click into record details. If I turn that on, it's going to create a new record layout for us, right? And this is a slide out layout. So I like this one as a second stage in regards to the user experience. So I'm just going to name this a slide so that it's easy for us to understand which type of layout we're using in the future. And that will become more apparent as we get into it. So down here, now we can customize this whole view just like we customized our full page view here. In here, we want, we've got the related contacts. Again, I'm just going to make that pill view. Company from contact, from related contact. I don't think we need this, so let's hide that. Oh, just going to remove that, sorry. And in here, we could customize this however we want, but I'm not going to just for now. Again, just for sake of time, this video is already going to be probably a couple of hours long. I'm going to think. But now you can see if I click on this, it's going to open this side layout. And again, if you click on the group here, we could make these editable. So if I have the group, I could make this all editable so we can customize it from within inside. It just makes it really easy for people to use the system, click around, get to where they need to, from wherever they need to, and then edit things as they go. So super powerful. I'm going to click publish. Now, as a user experience, I like to consistently make it act like this, right? So if you click on a table or an area of the CRM on the left-hand side, we get our full table. If we click into a record from our full table, it opens up the full page view in the first instance because we've come in via contacts, we're on the contact. Now I like to have the second step. So if I was to then try and click into the deal, that opens up as the slide. And I like to have that repeated user experience throughout all of the system. So if we come into here, which is the one that we already have built and accessible in the community, if I come into contacts, you will see that this is the consistent experience. So if I click in open, there's no deals or anything in here actually. So if I click into deals, I can open this up. And because I've clicked in from the deals section, we're going to get the full deals view. And then if I click in proposals here, it's going to open up the side panel, right? If I click into the task here, it's going to open up the side panel. So that's a consistent experience that we've designed in this core CRM across all of the different sections of the CRM here. So hopefully you get into grips with how we've built all this out and some of the design and experience decisions that have been made, because it just makes it a really nice piece of software to use. So we've done contacts. Companies is going to be set up pretty much in exactly the same way. So I'm not going to spend a ton of time on companies today, but essentially it's set up the same way as contacts. You would have the main full page, and then you would have the slide outs for any of the related records that you click into. So let's go on to one of the ones that's a little bit more interesting, which is deals, because here we have this Kanban view, but we also have the list view as well, right? So we have the typical list view, and then we also have the Kanban view as well. So if I come into our demo, let's click on CRM, click on plus page, and then this time we're going to create another list. We're going to set it to deals. And now we've got our deals view here, right? So if I click in to open this deal, sorry, let me just back up 1 second here. So as I'm hovering over this, if I try and open up this CRM customization deal that we created, you can see we've already got an available layout, which was the deal detail slide that we just used previously. So if I allow this, it's now going to use that page name that we've already set up. And the reason why this is important is because if I change this page name here, so the deal detail slide, if I change this here and I use deal detail slide from anywhere else in the system, whatever changes I make here are also going to apply to wherever else that it is used. So if we just see, for example, if I put all of this in the background color, and let's say I move the value here next to the expected close date, and I put the stage here as well. So we're making these adjustments to this, right? Then if I publish this, so you see if I click on this, we've got the side panel, which we're going to change to the full screen in a second, but just to show and illustrate a point, we've got the side panel, the slide panel here. If I come back into contacts, if I open up James Smith here, and if I open up this deals customization, you can see it's applied the same settings because we've customized that page, stored that page layout, and then we can use that from multiple places within the system, which is really cool. So it saves a lot of time remaking pages constantly. So essentially for both, so for pretty much all records, I have 2 pages set up. You have the full page layout, and then you have a slide page layout so that it can be repeatedly used across the whole system. So the deals here, what we want to do is we don't want this, we want the full screen. So if we come into our edit mode, I'm going to, where are we? Down under here underneath user actions, we've got click into record details. I'm going to click on this little cog here. And you can see this is where we can change the layout, right? So I'm actually going to create a new layout. It's going to be the full screen layout. If I go back to deals, I'll open up this one. And then we could customize again this layout. And I like to always use the same structure for the records, right? So as it is in contacts, you would have the editable record information at the top. Then a bunch of the related records here. And then you would also have the record data that's uneditable in a group at the bottom. So I would follow the same structure for the deal. So I'll let you guys do that as you please to set up that structure. But what I wanted to show you here more specifically is we want to be able to have, as is seen in our demo system, we want to be able to have these different filters here. So we can filter by all deals, we filter by won deals or lost deals. But then also we want to change the view sometimes to a Kanban view, right? So if we want to move these cards along through these different stages. So if I click back over here, what we're going to do to do that is first off, we're going to click up the top, actually. That's where we need to go. And you can see underneath user filters, we're going to add these tabs. So we've now got a tab and then we've got all deals. This tab here, we're going to put as one, right? So we want to filter by just the won deals. Now you can see we can filter by status or stage is 1. And that's going to filter all of our won deals. And then if we add another one, we can do the same again for lost, right? So if we click lost, filter by stage is lost. And then you can move these around as well. Well, you should be able to. Where are we? Filter. Yeah, if we click on to tabs here, if you click on this little cog icon, you can move these around, right? So all deals, won, lost. And then the next thing that we want to do is make it so that the second view is for the Kanban view. So if I click into the page again here, you've got appearance, and then you've got visualizations. If I click on this, you can see that I can toggle on any other types of views from within inside this menu. So I can toggle on the Kanban view. I could also toggle on a timeline view or a grid view. However you want to customize these, you can do afterwards then. So if I click on the Kanban view, now we've got our Kanban set up here. So we're going to shrink the uncategorized because we don't want that. But you can see we've got one deal in proposal sent, right? And this deal here, if I click into it, it's going to open up the deal record. Again, you can customize that however you want to. But you can actually customize the fields that are viewable on here as well. So if I wanted to put the created by, we could add that on there. If I wanted to put the expected close date, we could add that on there. I would tend to say that you want just a couple of things on here, really. Usually the value, the expected close date, and maybe a little bit of a description is helpful, but you can customize that however you want to as well. So what else do I want to show you here? Yes, this one's really important. I think this just adds a really nice visual cue to the CRM, which is these strips on the left-hand side, the colors for each one of these. Now you can create really creative systems here. I like to keep this pretty simple. I want red ones to show me deals that haven't been touched in a while. And I want green ones to just indicate, yeah, these ones have been dealt with recently and they don't really need too much attention. All right, so if we're in here, how do we actually do that? I'm going to show you with inside this demo system. So imagine we've got our demo system here that we've been customizing. You click on this table, And you'll see that we've got an appearance on the right hand side here, which is color by. If you click on this, you can set conditions, all right, for the color coding of these left-hand side bars. So if we click on our demo, let me just show you how that's set up. So you can see we've got 3 conditions going on here. So we've got where last modified at. So the last modified date is actually really important here for this one. So the last modified is after 1 week ago, then it's going to be green. Where the last modified is before 1 week ago and last modified is after 1 month ago, then it's going to be yellow. And then where the last modified is before 1 month ago, then it's going to be red. So this kind of conditions is if we've not touched this in more than a month, it's red. If it's been touched less than a week ago, it's green. If it's in between, then it's yellow, right? So it's orange. So that's how you can set these up so that you can see visually, hey, this is how this is the activity status of these deals. It's actually really important and really handy for a sales team if they're trying to figure out where they should focus their attention and you've got a lot of deals that you're trying to work, right? So that's the deals setup there. And you can toggle between list and Kanban view really easily. So if we click publish now, we've got list and Kanban that we can filter between. And we've also got our filters here as well. And as we did in contacts, you want to be able to add a record here. So in the deals, you would come into the main page section here, click on add records through a form, and you can see it adds that button in at the top. And then you can click on edit the form and you can add whatever fields in that you want whatever fields in that you want somebody to fill in whenever they create the deal. I'm going a little bit delirious here, guys, because I've been recording for a long time. So apologies at this point if I'm slurring some words here and there, but hopefully you can bear with me. All right, so what else have we got next? We have tasks. So we're going to add in our tasks list. We don't have an area for notes specifically, but we have tasks, right? So tasks is going to be set up in a very similar way. It's mainly going to be just a table view. You're going to also want the add records through a form. So you can add that button on there. I also like to turn some of these things off really because I don't really want groups or filters on here. If I'm going to add a filter, what I will do is I will put the filter as a drop down here so I can control the filters really easily and make them super user friendly. So if we look in our tasks section here, what we have is the button at the top to add a task. If I click on done, we can have the form set up here, and you can also indicate which fields are required as well as you set the form up. Okay. That's very straightforward to do. If we click on this button here and we open up the form, if we want to make sure the task title is required, on the right-hand side here, we can do required field. All right. And you can also add a default value in there as well if you want to, or character limits, which can be quite useful as well on certain things. So that's how you can do all of this stuff here. You can add it so that they can relate a contact or a deal. And again, you can move all this around to make it just look and feel a lot better. Status wouldn't be needed in this because we would automatically set the status as open as long as it's before the dates. And that's where some automations would come in. But yeah, you got the title, the details, the assignee. And then if you want to relate it to a contact or relate it to a deal, specifically, you can do that from here as well. And that will be in this form that I like to use. So that's the task form. So if I click on publish here, let's add a new task in. So let's say follow up on CRM customization project. I'm going to set the due dates. Oh, the completed date we wouldn't want in there, so we're going to remove that actually. And then we're going to set this up against our deal, which is our CRM customization deal. I'm going to click on create, right? So if I come back to our edit page here, Give me a second. I'm going to come back to our form. We don't actually want that completed date. Let's get rid of that. We want the due date and the assignee. And I think all of these things should be mandatory as well. I don't think the details needs to be required, but I think assignee, due date, and then one of these needs to be, but I suppose it doesn't have to be required, right? So now we've got a task list, and we want to again make sure that if I click onto this, I can open up the task. So if I click on this, I need to allow users to open up the details. I'm going to create our full task detail full. We're going to have our second group down here, so our record data. And you can see, if I click on this stuff, I'm going to drop this down into our group, created at, created by, modified at, modified by. And then we'll also have the ID. Or maybe we didn't have a task ID. I thought we should have. There usually is. Oh, we missed the ID field. But you'd add the task ID in there. And then we'll have the background color. And none of these are going to be editable, right? The stuff up here will be, right? So we're going to make all this stuff editable. The status here, the due date, the related contact, and the related deal. These are both going to be pill format. Due date, status. You can even put this in a 3-column layout as well if you want to, guys. I think it goes as much as, it goes as much as 3, and then it separates out into another column layout. So you can get really custom with how you lay everything out here. Now, the completed date, we don't actually want that to be editable, all right? So we're going to change this field only to view only, which is also a really cool feature because you can get really granular with the permissions. You can make this whole group editable, but you can also then go in and then you can change the individual permissions of any one given field within inside. All right, so now we've got this set up here. If I click on publish, now we can change the things in here as we want. Back to tasks. Now, one of the things that I want to do is I want to make sure that whenever a new task is created, we want to make sure that it is set as open. The status is open as default. So if I come back over to view data in tasks, I'm actually going to come to the status field. I'm going to edit the field, and then I'm going to add a default option as open. And the tasks are interesting because we can do some nice automations around tasks, which we'll come up to in the final part of this video, or this mini course, should I call it. So yeah, let's just make this one open. Let's delete these guys so that it's not so messy. Let's get rid of that. Now, if I go back to our interface here, now you can see we've got one task, right? If I click on open here, how do we complete the task? That's the question. I can move it to complete this way, but it might be nice for us to have a nice button up here to just say done. So if I come back over to edit pages, what we can do is we've got our record. And if I go to buttons at the top, in the right-hand side here, we'll get there in the end. I can go update a record, right? So the action can be update a record. And the record is going to be, we're going to update this record that we have open, and we're going to update the status to complete, right? And then we're going to put the label as done, or complete, sorry. So the color before is going to be green, color after is going to be gray. So if I click on publish now, we can mark this complete. You can see it now changes the status to complete. Now we can't undo that either, right? You could come back over here and you could change it to open again. That's absolutely fine. That's how we want it to work. And then if I click complete, it changes it to complete. So you can manually reopen tasks if you want to, which is cool. But there's one other thing that I want to do here, which is inside that update record, we're going to add another action here, which is let's mark the complete date to today. Actually, we don't get any dynamic features here, so we'll have to do that by automation. So we'll create an automation to do that later. All right, that's working fine for now. If you click on these three dots, you can see that we've got this print this page. That might be useful for you, but it might not be. So if you don't want that, you can just get rid of that here. So you can turn that off, allow users to print, and you can get rid of that. You can also add extra buttons as well. Maybe you want like a button for cancel the task as well, and it automates the status to go to cancelled, and same thing. So now we've got our tasks looking good. Now we might want to color code these again, right? Because what we want to do is color by conditions. And we're going to make it red where the due date is after. I always get confused with the dates, but I think it's after today. So if it's not after, it's before, right? So if the due date is before today, the dates always confuse me here. So if the due date is before today, then it's going to mark it as red, right? So if I come in here and I change the due date to 3 days ago and come back out, you can see now that it's marked it as red, right? And one of the things that we would also want to do when we come around to creating the automations a little bit later is make it so that when the due date is past today, it's going to update the status to overdue, because we want to make sure that we're marking it as overdue if it actually is overdue. We're looking good, right? We can add an extra task in here. Let's go email James about the project. Assign it to next week. Related contact is going to be James, right? So you can see now we can assign these to either a deal or we can assign them to a contact. It's up to us. But if I come back to contacts now and open James up, you'll see down here that the tasks are also listed in here as well, right? And again, we'll be able to come into our edit view, make sure that we can open up the record as we click into the record. Now you can see the layout that we've got is task detail full, but we don't want that, right? So what we want to do is create a new layout. And then we've got the sidebar here. And again, we can customize this however we want, right? So we can add in whatever fields that we want here. We've got the details, the assignee, the status, the complete date, the due date, related contact, related deal. Any fields that we want to add in, we can do. And again, if we want to make this group editable, we click on this and then we make it editable, and then we can update it from within inside. So you can see how this is really coming together as a whole platform. There's a lot of little bits that you need to just make sure on each screen everything's connected up correctly. So it can be quite time consuming to get this all done and dusted and set up and working super smoothly. But hopefully you can see how we started to build out this whole CRM system with a really nice user flows, a really nice consistent experience across the whole thing. All right, so if I come back into our demo account here, what else do we need to build out? We've got contacts, companies, deals, we've got proposals, and then we also have notes, but we don't have a front end for notes because notes get added at the contact or the deal level, really. So if I come back into proposals here, let's go into interfaces. Let's add one more page. And we can add our proposals page. We're going to start with a list again. This time we're going to do proposals. Let me just clear out the data so it actually is cleaner. Yeah, so now we're going to start with the proposals again. And it's the same as the other sections, guys, but just a tiny little bit different in regards to the tweaks and the fields that are being displayed. We want to be able to click into the proposal. So we're going to create a new record. We're going to label this as the full version of the screen. So we're going to make this full screen. And then we can again continue to create our group, right? So our record data group down at the bottom. where we have our sort of system fields. We've got last modified at, last modified by. We have our ID up here. We'll drop that in as well. I love the drag and drop nature of this. So yeah, we can get that updated there. Oh, over to the left here. Okay, let's set the background color. So now we've got our record data. Again, we're going to leave this as view only. That's not editable. And the stuff at the top will be editable, right? So we've got our status field. Let's say this is under review, the assignee. Then we've got all of these other fields here, right? So the overview, the project goals, etc. One of the things that we can't see here is who this proposal is related to, what it's for, right? So it's going to be related to a deal. So let's make sure that we add that in. Looks like we forgot to add that into our proposals data. So let's go back over to proposals. Yeah, we need to create our links, right? So if I insert to the right, link another record, we're going to link this to deals. A proposal cannot be linked to multiple deals, it can only be linked to one. So related deal. And then we're going to add in some lookup fields as well, so we can pull in some more information from the related deal. I want to know the related contact. I also want to know the company as well. So if we add those in, we can relate this to our CRM customization deal. If we come over to our interface now, down to proposals, so open up our proposal view. And then inside our proposal view here, what we're going to do is we're going to add in our related deal. We're going to put that as a pill. And now we can see like this is coming together a lot nicer. All right, so we've got the assignee, the status, the related deal for this proposal, and then you've got the proposal details in here, and we've got the proposal link. Again, if you want to see how to do the one-click proposals, that is an extra automation enhancement that we've built onto this using make.com and pandadoc and some AI stuff. It's really cool. You can see that here in our core CRM. Yeah, you can find the link in the description to that video. You can access all the templates and everything in the community. So that's how you kind of set this proposals record up. And again, if we click publish, what we want here is to be able to click and see the deal as well, right? So if you come into the proposal, you want to be able to click and see the deal, which is something that we can't do right now. So if we go back into the edit view, then we can see click into record details. Then we've got the deal details slide, which is the slide out, and that's the consistent user experience that we want to create here, right? So click on publish. Now, this time, if I click on the CRM customization, you can see that it slides out, and we can edit this if we need to. So really cool, really useful. And that's how we built this interface out, really. There's a lot more to it. There's been a lot more hours spent, obviously, on tweaking this and making sure it's absolutely perfect. But I'm hoping that this gives you the basic understanding of how you can build out this core CRM interface and customize it to yourself. Airtable interfaces are really powerful. There's lots of stuff that you can do with them. So do experiment, figure out what's going to work best for you. And in the last final section of this mini course that this is turning into, we'll cover off the automations side of things and how to create some useful automations inside Airtable. And again, all of these automations come as part of this core CRM system here, right? So all of this stuff here. All right, so let's cover that now. All right, guys, so let's finish this off by going through all of these automations and getting these set up. So there's nothing going to be too crazy in this. I just want to show you some different types of automations that you might set up in a CRM just to get the juices flowing. And maybe in the future, you might want to add on more complex stuff. We'll cover off how to get data out of Airtable in a second as well through an automation so that you can integrate it easily with something like make.com. There are multiple ways to do that. But yeah, let's jump into the automations inside Airtable. And they're particularly powerful for running quick rules within your system. There's a few here related to tasks. So when the task is completed, do X, Y, and Z. When a date matches today, do X, Y, and Z, right? So it's these kind of like simple rules-based automations. You can do more complex stuff in here as well, but I like to use make.com for doing anything that's a little bit more complex. One thing to note, and one thing that I always do when building a system like this, is make sure that the automations are organized in a way that's going to be easy to manage and maintain moving forward. Because if you end up adding a lot of automations, they're going to be in a stack down this left-hand side panel here, and you just want to be able to find the ones that you want to find relatively quickly. So the first thing that we're going to do is if we come into this automations panel for the first time here, it just brings us straight to the automation builder. So if I come back over to our core CRM, demo account, the copy and paste version in the community, then you'll see I've sectioned all these out by the different tables that we've got within the CRM. So there's a contact section, there's a companies section, there's a proposal section, notes, tasks, meetings, deals. It just keeps all the automations nice and organized. So what we'll start with is the tasks here. We don't have anything running on contacts or companies, but you could do some simple automations there. We've got one underneath proposals as well, but we're going to start with tasks, right? So if we come back over to our interface for a second, if we remember when we were in tasks here, if I open up one of these tasks, if I mark this complete, we can see down here that the status has been complete, but we were unable to update the completion date as well, right? So that's one thing that we want to do. When this button's pressed, the status is complete. So let's also update the completion date. So if we come into our automations, and then we're going to go to the trigger, and we're going to say when a record matches conditions, right? So the table is going to be tasks, and then we're going to use conditions when the status is complete. So that's the trigger, right? And then we'll go to the next step here, which is update a record. And then we'll say update the tasks table. Now the record ID, if we click on this blue plus here, this gives us a dynamic table so that we can pull in the record ID of the record that has the correct conditions. So you can see when a record matches conditions, if we click on this, now we can use the record ID from that record. Then the fields, we're going to update the completed date. And then if we click on this little icon here, this little gear icon, then we can change that to dynamic. And then we can click on the plus icon here, click on specific time, and then we can insert the runtime. So that's going to be now. So if I then click generate preview, run a test, and let's run a test on the one that we completed before. Now you can see that it has updated the completion date to today. Pretty cool. So now we can turn that on. We want to rename this and we want to call this task complete. Update completion date. All right. So now we are getting cracking with our automations list on the left-hand side. Now down here, we're going to create another automation. And we can see what else have we got here. We've got task due, right? So when a record's due date is today, update the status to due. So if I come back over here, what this relates to is in our interface, we have a due date for a task. And we also have a overdue status here. So we're actually going to use this overdue status. We want to make sure that when the due date is today, it's now, or past today, it's going to be overdue. So if I come back into our data, into automations, and these are just some simple automations, guys, but hopefully I'm just showing you some quick things here so that you get the point, you get the idea. So when a record matches the conditions, we're going to change or select the tasks table. When we have the due date is number of days from now. So 1 day from now. No, that's not correct. When the due date is yesterday, that's what we want, right? So when the due date is yesterday, then we are going to update the record. and we're going to select the tasks table. Going to click on this blue icon again. We're going to use the Airtable record ID from the step before. And then we're going to update the status to overdue, right? So let's rename this automation. Due date yesterday. Status overdue. With these little automations like this, I like to just be super clear in the description. Hey, when this happens, we do this. When this happens, we do this, just to make it very clear when I'm looking at the automations in the list, what it is that I'm looking at. So now one of the things that we will do is we'll add a section in here just to make this a little bit more organized. So we're going to create a section. I'm going to call this tasks. And then because these are our task automations, we're just going to drag this and put this underneath tasks. And then we're going to create another section, which we'll start working on next, which is for deals. And we'll start adding our next automations to that section there, just to keep it a little bit more tidy. So if we click over to our interface now, we should see a couple of different things, right? If I click open this task here, if I move the due date to today, it's Saturday, right? So if I move it to Friday, that should trigger our automation, right? So if I click on Friday, our automation should run, and you can see now the status is overdue. If I click on complete, now you'll see the status is complete, and then the completed date is gone to today. Now, the completed date is not editable. We don't want that to be editable. We want that to be done by the system, right? So in the system, the record view here, this cannot be edited, because if I reopen this and change it again, we want to be able to complete it and then update the completion date, right? So hopefully that makes sense. So there's our task automations done. So the next ones we're going to cover is deals. So the most obvious one, which is similar to the tasks updating the date, we're going to do deal closed, update the close date. So if we come back to our deals here, and if we go to our Kanban view, let's open our deal. Let's just flesh this out a little bit more so we know what we're working with. So I'm going to come back into our edit pages, and using the skills that we honed in the last section, we're going to add some extra fields in, right? So we've got the value, we've got the description, we want the stage, we want the expected close date, we want the actual close date, and we want anything else here? No, that's it. Then we want our other group for the record data. I forgot to do this earlier, so apologies. So for the record data here, we're going to add in our created app, created by. Then we're going to do our modified app, modified by. I won't format everything exactly right, guys. You remember how to do this already. We'll pop that background color in there. Leave that as view only. And then this top group here, I'm going to pop the background color in. We're going to make it editable. But again, what we're not going to do is we don't want the close date to be editable. And I'm just going to tidy this up a little bit. Let's have all this down here like this. And then let's also get our related contact in here as well. All right, so now you can see this is a lot more customized for what we need. And then we would add the extra notes and all that kind of other good stuff in between these two sections here as well. But for speed here, what we want is we want to be able to update this close date when the stage is marked as either won or lost. Because when it's won or lost, the deal is closed. And we will be able to use the close date and the stage in reporting in the future. So that's what we want to happen. So if we come back over to our view data, we're going to come to automations, and then we're going to add an extra automation in here. And this is deal closed, update, close date. So when we go to when a record matches conditions, we're going to do deals. We're going to add when deal stage is won, or is any of, should I say, is either won or lost. Then we're going to update, and we are going to update the deal We're going to choose the record ID. Then we're going to go and update the close date to a dynamic variable, specific time, actual runtime, which is now, right? We can turn this one on. Then we can go back to our interface here. Let's open up this. And if we bring this back to our discovery call booked stage, and then if I go to 1, you will see the close date updates to today, right? So simple automations, but powerful, and just make sure that things stay correct in the system. Now, we want to make sure that close date is not editable, because we want it to only be updated by the stage being updated. So if we click into the close date here, we're going to change the permissions to view only. Now it cannot be edited by the user on the front end. Awesome. Publish this. Now we're looking really solid. One thing to note, actually, I just remembered here while we are on this pipeline view is if you see here, I can't actually click and drag, which is what you would usually be able to do on a Kanban view, right? So one thing that we need to do here is come into the edit page, click on this, and then you want to be able to add / delete records inline, or edit records inline, should I say. So if I click on publish here, now I should be able to move it along. So this is because it needs to be editable inline, and in that view, it is now editable. But that also means as well, when you move back to the list view, we are also editable inline as well. So I can literally click in here and I can update the value from here. I can change the owner from here. And some people might like that, having everything editable inline. So it's up to you if that's what you want. But yeah, unfortunately, so you could apply that across contacts or companies is what I mean here. But unfortunately, I would prefer to only have it on Kanban, but if you have it on the Kanban here, you have to have it on the list view as well, but that is what it is. All right, so the last thing that we want to do here of these kind of quick win automations is when a deal is closed and is won, we want to update Slack and let everybody know, right? So if I come back into our view data and come into automations again, we're going to add another automation. So create automation. And then a very simple trigger again, when a record matches conditions. As you can probably guess, we're going to go deals, and we're going to say when stage is 1. Then we are going to come down to a Slack integration here, and we're going to send a message, right? So we're going to go send a message. I'm going to use my Slack account here. If you haven't connected your Slack account, you will just be able to connect your Slack account via this plus button. Then we're going to select a channel. I'll just throw this in general for now. And then I already have a message in here, so I'm just going to copy and paste it. Let me see if that will paste over with the values as well. It will. So here we're going to say new customer closed by. So this is going to be the person that the deal was assigned to. So if we click on the plus icon here, we're going to come down to the assigned to field, or assignee, is it? Where are we? Assigned to, and then we're going to use the assigned to name. So the company value is going to be the deals related company. Now, one thing that we're missing here is the related company for the deal. We do have the related contact, but not the related company. So if we come back into the data here, come into the deals. So we have the related contact here and the main contact for. So it's the main contact for that we want. So if I go back over to the automation again, company here, now we should have the main contact for. And then we're going to go link record and then name. Yeah, that's correct. So the main contact for is going to be the company name, and then we want the name of the contact. So we will go to related contact, and then the deal. We're going to put the deal title in here, and then the value, and then we're going to put the deal value in here as well. Now we can test this and see if it works in Slack. So I'm going to select a record. We don't have anything here, so let me just go back into the data, switch the automation on. Let's move this to 1. Now we should get a Slack notification now. Let me just double check. Make sure that's come through. All right. Yeah, it has. Let me just bring this over from Slack, and you can see we have our Slack ID like this, right? So our Slack message like this. So we had a new notification, and you can fancy this up, put some nice emojis in there, make it look cool and interesting. But the point is, when something happens in Airtable, we can send it into Slack super, super easy, which is cool. So the last thing that I want to just run through here, if we just put these in our deals section, the last one that I just wanted to cover quickly with you is this one here, generate proposal button. And again, I've covered this in detail in the video that's in the description below, which is the one-click proposals video. But I just want to quickly cover this off just to show you that we can also trigger automations when a button is clicked, right? So if we come over to our interface, I'm actually going to go over into the one that we've been building. So let's just say that you wanted to trigger something to happen when a new deal is added, but you want it to happen straight away in a different system. We will use make.com for something like this. So if I just pull up make.com quickly, and I'll pull up the proposal. So I'm just pulling up here the proposal generation automation that we created in that previous video. But essentially what happens is when a webhook retrieves some information, then we can run all of these different steps based off the back of it. Now, Make has also just released their agents. So we could also trigger agents to work off the back of this as well, off the back of a button click inside of Airtable, which is really powerful. So imagine if you press this button, you can trigger an automation to fire off. What we had in here is within the proposals one, we would have it so that if you click on this generate proposal here, this whole automation would run. And what that would do is it would end up creating a proposal in PandaDoc using some ChatGPT wizardry. And then it would update the proposal link back in here almost within just a few seconds. It would do the whole thing. And then you have a fully functioning proposal that you can use for sending to your clients, right? So super cool stuff. But the possibilities are endless with this. And that's why I really like this system as a great foundation or a great core system, hence the name, that allows you to really customize and layer on automation and AI workflows super easy, depending on what you need for your business, right? We can add a whole bunch of buttons onto any of these screens that can trigger processes, they can trigger agents to run, they can trigger a bunch of different stuff. And that's one of the really powerful things I think about Airtable and its new interfaces tool. It allows you to build that really flexible, structured backend, but also with the automations, being able to trigger through buttons in the front-facing interfaces. It just allows us to leverage and scale a lot easier with these AI automation workflows without trying to cobble loads and loads of systems together. We can bring all of our key business data into one place, and then we can fire off workflows as and when we need it during our business processes and systems. So that's what I wanted to show you in regards to the automations, because that's really actually quite easy to do. There is a little bit of a script involved, but again, if you get any of the templates from the community that have any of this script inside of them, you will also get the script as well as part of the templates. You can see down here, we run this off to a make.com webhook, and we just send over this stuff here, which is basically just sending some parameters from Airtable to make.com. And that's it for this video, guys. It's been a long video. I hope it's been useful and you've learned a lot. I really wanted to give you a crash course in setting up a super comprehensive CRM system that can be the foundation of your business data, right? And it can act as the hub for your business data by pulling in many different things into one place and then connecting them all together and building an awesome interface that you and your team can use without having to get bogged down in the data layer. You can actually use these really cool interfaces now, can layer on automations to build a scalable system for your business in the future. So that's what I wanted to go over in this video. I really hope that I've managed to show you how this can be done and how this is useful. I'm aware that we wanted to go into the reporting as well, but what I'll do is I'll save that in for a second video, and we'll go over how to pull together a reporting dashboard like this based off the metrics and the data from your CRM, core CRM system. So hope that's helpful, guys. If you have found this useful, do make sure to subscribe if you haven't done so already. And consider joining Automation Architects if you like learning about this kind of stuff and building systems and connecting with other people that like the same, and other business owners that like the same. I will see you in the next one. And thanks for staying tuned for this long, but hopefully valuable mini course. Cheers.